When you're taking organic chemistry, you're going to learn a lot of reactions. But those reactions can be overwhelming. So, what is it that you really need to know as you're learning the reactions? For every reaction, there is a reactant or set of reactants. There are reagents that go with those reactants, and there's a product you're trying to make. So, for every set of reactions, you should know those things, right? What is the reactant that is going to contribute most of the carbon to the product, right? The thing that the product is most closely related to. And what are the reagents? And sometimes that includes things like solvents or catalysts that go along with those reagents, okay? So you need to know those three elements of a reaction. What's the reactant? What's the reagent or reagents? What is the product or products we expect? Now, along with that, you need to learn the mechanism of the reaction. And you need to learn it two ways. One, you need to be able to draw it using the proper arrow notation. Okay? So you should practice drawing out the mechanism. But you should also be able to conceptualize it. That is, think about it without drawing it out, and at least know the important features. Of that mechanism, right? And those important features would be things like, are there important intermediates, right? Carbocations or cyclic intermediates, right? Do we have to worry about things like rearrangement or resonance that affect our products, right? So you need to be able to think about those things because those things affect other pieces of information you need to know about those reactants or those reactions. Like you need to know the stereochemistry of the reactions, right? You need to know the regiochemistry. Right? And all of those things are related to the mechanism. And so if you can think about the important points of the mechanism, that can give you important clues about things like stereochemistry and regiochemistry and make those things easier to remember. They become part of the story and not just something that you memorize. Okay? So understanding the mechanism to the reactions is an important part. But there's also some recall we've got to be able to do. All right? So we've got those elements, reactant, reagent, product. A number of questions we're going to ask are setting you up to know these reactions very well as vocabulary, because later in the course, we need to be able to put these parts together, string together reactions in order to synthesize complex molecules from simple molecules. And so a lot of this is about building up these reactions as vocabulary. Okay? So as part of that, we need to be able to break these down. So we will ask questions like this. We will give you the reactant and the product and say, what reagent would do that? Okay? So you need to be able to answer those questions about any of our reactions. We can give you the reactant and the reagent and say, what's the product? Right? That is a way we ask questions. And so you need to be able to do that for any of our reactions. Right? We might give you the reagent and the product and ask you what kind of reactant would be appropriate to complete that reaction. Right? And then we can also do, right, ones where we just give you a product and say, what could you make that product from and what reagents would you need? Right? So those are standard patterns of questions that we will ask as we learn reactions. So every time we learn reactions, the tests on those reactions will involve those kinds of questions. And really, these are the most important ones because as we're stringing reactions together, a valuable skill is being able to look at the product you're given and think, what could I make that product from? What could I make that product from? Okay? So this is an important part of becoming fluent in that reaction vocabulary that we're going to need later in the class as we string reactions together. So I hope that gives you an indication of the way you should approach studying each of the reactions that we're learning as we go through the class.